Hello everyone, I'm back with a brand new video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the WWE Monday Night War Series Ken Shamrock Elite. And you may notice this is a rare video that I'm doing actually indoors. I just did a Hulk Hogan video a few minutes ago, and the sun is just not cooperating today because I felt that video came out too dark. Then I went to a couple of different locations in the yard and it was kind of looked even darker. So I just decided to come on in and do it in the confines of home. So something a little different for you. I always kind of like to switch things up and keep you guys on your toes. But Ken Shamrock, interesting figure in WWE history. And of course, the Monday Night War Series, as it states, these commemorate the legends from that very important period of wrestling history that we're still really reaping the benefits of today. The other figures in this series, we have Diamond Dallas Page from his WCW days. We have Bret Hart and the Ringmaster, Stone Cold Steve Austin, his Ringmaster gimmick before he hit it big as Stone Cold, and he actually still had hair, as you can see in that gimmick. It's a Build-A-Figure series, so each figure has pieces that will create a Gorilla Monsoon figure. And Gorilla Monsoon, I believe there's a book about him coming out that I've heard some pretty good things about. Gorilla Monsoon, very important figure in WWE history. He, if you grew up in the 90s, you probably remember him as one of the on-air authority figures, or you remember him as he was actually the first person on TV to be given like the commissioner role in storyline. He also was longtime announcer. He passed away in 1999 of cancer. And but yeah, let's get into this. Ken Shamrock, world's most dangerous man. So Ken Shamrock, and I think I'm going to do a pretty good job on his history. He's a guy that I really don't, what's the word? I don't say keep up, but I would, if you definitely watch, WWE from, 1997 through 2000. I think that's the year when he left. I think his last year was 2000, or could have possibly been early 2001, but I want to say 2000. You definitely remember Shamrock. He was an upper mid card, occasional main eventer. He was a pretty big star in that era. His claim to fame was UFC. He's actually, and he's alive. I'm not talking like he's dead. He's one of the founding fathers of the Ultimate Fighting Championships. He was one of their major stars when they started out. Definitely a pioneer in mixed martial arts here in this country, and I believe in Japan as well. I believe he was a pretty important part of maybe Pancrase or one of those major MMA groups, back in the early 90s. But Ken Shamrock, and matter of fact, let's take out the figure. I really don't want to take this jacket off because I just think the figure looks so perfect with it. I may not, because we see it's red tights, it's nothing special. I like the back of this jacket though. I like the Shamrock. Yeah, I think we're going to keep this in the jacket. Good head scan, looks just like him. I like you have the gloves on, the red, the knee pads, the kick boots. Very good figure. And yes, I don't believe we're going to take this out the jacket. It's not worth it. But, so Shamrock, interesting. So Shamrock came on the scene in 97. He was his first major role in WWE. He was the enforcer, the in-ring basically referee for the legendary Bret Hart Steve Austin match at WrestleMania 13. And there's a backstory because Bret Hart is the one who actually was responsible for him coming to WWE. He got him in the door, and throughout his life, he's, to this day, he and Bret Hart are very, very close. And actually, if you remember, because after he left WWE, I believe he went back to mixed martial arts, and then he had a pretty decent run in Impact Wrestling, TNA. He was there for quite a few years, and he actually was inducted into their Hall of Fame a few years ago. And he had Mick Foley, The Rock, I believe Mick Foley, but I know he had The Rock and Bret Hart actually do video tributes for his induction. And I just thought that was really cool that, both two of the biggest stars of that era willingly did video tributes for Shamrock, which just goes to show what they thought of him and how important he was. And he's always defended Bret Hart, even when it came to the Montreal stuff. He was one of the people in the locker room who was definitely not a fan of what went down that day. And, Bret Hart has always spoke highly of him. And The Rock, that's interesting because The Rock's feud with Shamrock was really The Rock's first major feud that kind of showed what was to come in terms of his stardom. If you go back to early 1998, The Rock was just recently becoming a heel in the Nation of Domination. Farouk was still the leader, but you could tell, Rock was clearly on the ascent. And he was feuding with Shamrock, and there was a legendary chair shot. And wasn't a good thing when we know about chairs and CT and all that stuff, but one of the most wicked chair shots you will ever see was a chair shot that Rock delivered to Shamrock on an episode of Monday Night Raw. I believe it may have been around February or March of 1998, but he walloped him with that chair, and they had a match at WrestleMania. They had a match at WrestleMania 14, which Shamrock won, and then their feud continued, off and on, and they actually met in the finals of the 1998 King of the Ring tournament, which was won by Shamrock. So Shamrock is he's on the short list of King of the Ring winners, and it was during that feud where Shamrock said, and this is something I read years later in some article or some book or something, but he said during that feud in 98 against The Rock, he could tell that he was going to be the next, in his words, he was like the next Bruno Sammartino. And that's extreme praise for any wrestler to be compared to Bruno Sammartino. And I believe Rock lived up to that. I believe Rock lived up to Shamrock's expectations, because by the next year, by 99, The Rock was unquestionably the biggest star in the business, or if not the biggest, he was right underneath Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Shamrock, as far as Shamrock's major WWE feuds, I would have to say Rock definitely. Steve Blackman, because they had a lot of, and another kind of noted tough guy, Steve Blackman, they had a pretty violent, brutal feud, a lot of matches, I think around maybe 99. And then Owen Hart. Owen Hart had a pretty decent feud culminating in a dungeon match at SummerSlam 98. It was a match that took place in the, or maybe it was a Lions Den match. It was a Lions Den match. It was a match that took place in an octagon, in what we know now as the octagon. It was an octagon UFC MMA ring with the cage at SummerSlam 1998. So just some back history with Shamrock. And again, I think, once he left WWE, I think he went back to UFC or with MMA for a while, and then he resurfaced in Impact. And from what I wasn't watching really Impact at that time, but from what I understand, he had a really decent run for a couple of years there. And apparently it was a good enough run, and he was, that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. So kind of a nice little bow to a very interesting career in professional wrestling. A guy that came from wrestling, he was probably one of the first guys, early, guys to come from the MMA world into wrestling to have a pretty successful career. And Shamrock is also interesting because I think he was ahead of his time, because his finishing move, remember, was the ankle lock. And 2 years later, Kurt Angle would come in, when, of course, Shamrock was long gone by that point, but Angle came in, and the ankle lock, I believe, is more, it's more synonymous as Angle's finisher than Ken Shamrock's finisher. So I just think that's just kind of some interesting irony that Kurt Angle came in a couple of years later, ended up using his finishing move, and to greater acclaim than Shamrock when he was using it. So, but again, he definitely a memorable character from that Monday Night War Attitude Era period, and he definitely made an impact in WWE. So that is pretty much all I have to say about Shamrock. And again, hope you enjoy the nice cream wall behind me, because again, it was just a little too much outside of that, the lack of sunlight. So thank you all for watching this video. Hope you I enjoy doing these. You are the reason why I do this. As I tell you all the time, you could be doing a million other things, watching a million other videos, but you chosen to watch mine. I definitely appreciate this. So just thank you for everything. Take care. Have a wonderful day. And I will talk to you again after a while.